you can.
Yes. Welcome back to the FTP on recent trends on cybersecurity domains. Let me now read out the instructions, which is to be followed by the participants for the successful completion of this ATAL program. Participants should get 80% attendance. Participants should get 60% marks in the final test, and the final test will be on Friday afternoon after the validatory function. And then regarding the lecture session, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and it will be clarified later on during the questionnaire session. At the end of each presentation, you will also be having questionnaire session. If any queries, just click virtual hand. That's it. Now I invite Dr. S. Saudia, Number Syndicate, Assistant Professor, Center for Information Technology and Engineering, Manoormaniam Sundarnar University, to introduce the resource person of this session. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Ms. Kavita. Good morning, all of you again, and welcome you all to the first session of the Faculty Development Program organized from the Center for Information Technology and Engineering. The FDP is on the recent trends in cybersecurity domain. So to introduce the resource person of the session, it is pleasure that I am introducing to you Mr. Suresh Kumar to take up the session. He's a senior cybersecurity evangelist and practitioner, has got over 7+ years of experience in cybersecurity consulting, cyber forensics, digital forensics, cloud security, network security, and ISMS auditing. With so many professional certifications like the Certified Ethical Hacker from the EC Council, Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator from the EC Council, ISO 27001 Lead Auditor, Certified PCI DSS version 3.2.1 Implementer, IT Infrastructure Library Foundation. He is a consultant with industries like the healthcare, banking and education, managing services like Security Operations Center, Incident Response, ISMS auditing, and cloud security. Currently, he is working as an information security manager in Standard Chartered, Bangalore of Karnataka. Thank you, sir, for the consent, and it's over to you, sir. Now the session is on Foundation to Cybersecurity. Thank you, sir. It's over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my pleasure to be here.
Sir, shall we start, sir?
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing good. And thank you all for joining one of the sessions organized by Manoormaniam Sundarnar University, and I'm glad that you guys are able to make it. Again, I know this is very critical situation, what is going on in and around us in the name of pandemic. Hope, I believe everyone is safe, and I do pray for your family, being safe in such cases. Yeah, once again, thank you for joining the cybersecurity session. Again, the whole concept of this session is in a fundamental aspect. So we will be talking in the basics of what is cybersecurity and how does it functions in the name, and different aspects. What are the risks and basic functionalities associated to cybersecurities, and the rest of the things. Again, the whole concept, or when you say the word cybersecurity, it is a traditional sense how it works. Again, if you take it 10 years ago, the word cybersecurity is kind of a, a subject which nobody would have heard about 10, 20 years ago. Even I still remember when I started using my first mobile phone, maybe around 2002 or 2001. I never thought that I would be in an industry which is called as cybersecurity. Again, this is always very important things which you have to know. So when there is a rapid growth around, and there is always a threat lurks behind, and that's what is a simple statements I could explain what is a cybersecurity. Again, nowadays cybersecurity is very common subject when you talk about it, because of the reason how prevalent threats are in and around us when it comes to digital world. You talk about Facebook, you talk about Twitter, you talk about Instagram, email. Doesn't matter whichever subject you take up, whichever the platform you take up. There's always what do you say? A nutshell vulnerability or nutshell threat which is there, which you have to be looking out for. As I said, I'm not going to cover much of a deep. It's again quite a 1 hour session, and 60 minutes is, I've tried to collate as much as best content for you guys. Hope you like it. And then again, the whole concept here is to brush up, and I'm sure there might be a much more sessions which will be organized, and I'm sure there will be better sessions which are better content sessions which I can deliver it to you guys. Nevertheless, thanks for joining, and let's get into the actual subject itself in such cases. First, moving into is agenda. So what are we going to looking at today? So when you talk about agenda, it's cybersecurity fundamentals. So in this basics, you will see what is what and how it works, and rest of the stuff. If you cross that and go to the next bullet point, information security and basic principles. So when you, again, information security is core, and under the hood, you have a nutshell of something called as cybersecurity, which is covered. Or let's say information security is a bigger umbrella, and under that it is the security fundamentals or cybersecurity fundamentals comes into picture. So when it comes to information security, the first important or the main concept comes into picture is three different principles, we call it as. And this is very important principles when it comes to information security. Reason being, if you understand exactly what is that, then the rest of the whole concept of security becomes simplified. A reason why I say that is because again, every subject has its core bone structure, or we call it as bulletins. And those bulletins, if you're able to understand the core, then rest of the things becomes easy. In that way, the three basic principles are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I'm sure if you talk about any security person coming in, I'm sure they would have surely talked about it. Regardless of what I had to put in, because of the reason it is, if in case if somebody did not, then it's very good to understand that. And that's why I put it up there. Again, we will talk about, there is a slide about it, and then we will brief on that. Once crossing that, you get into another bulletin, which is comes to threat, types of threats, vulnerabilities, risk, and classifications of risk. Very important concept with respect to a threat. Again, I will explain that in a formula. I like quantifying things because it makes me understand easily. Again, I would not prefer or literally to take that formula and apply it in a real world scenario. It does works, but if you put up in a enterprise level argument, there's always a better formulas which you can follow, and there's nothing wrong about it. And yeah, we will see different types of threats, and risk, and different types of risk associations, and how those risk associations can be classified. And again, risk management is one of the core concepts which we will talk about. Risk management, again, being not in a what do you say, practical way, but in a management way, but that can be adopted to a practical way in such cases. We will talk about that also. And moving forward, we have information classification and data privacy. I will just explain you and how it goes. Again, I don't like too much of slides to put together and talk about it. I'm a person who stands on one particular slide and it gives you a complete detail on what I tend to, because the more the slide and I don't tend to drag on, so it's better. That's the reason I prefer to go on that. Yeah. So in the one slide, which you will talk about data privacy, is simplest way I will explain you exactly how do you go about the data privacy. And again, I'm not talking about the PII, personally identifiable information, so all those things. Those are all core concepts. It is very important that we have to understand that. That doesn't mean that you have to see the backbone when it comes to any kind of a subject what you're talking about. So we'll talk about the certain backbones when it comes to information security classification and also data privacy. Crossing that, very important concept when it comes to cybersecurity is network security. So if you don't understand the network security, it is very, what do you say, likely you will get into confusion when it comes to cybersecurity. Again, it's one and the same. It is one and the same. If you study cybersecurity alone, it doesn't mean that you will not be a cybersecurity expert. What I'm trying to say is, if you have a network knowledge combined with cybersecurity, it's the best you can have. We will see some of the stuffs or some of the concepts which is associated to network security fundamentals and associated details in such cases. That's very important concept when it comes to those kind of nutshell areas. We will take a look at it and we'll see and how it works and all those functionality levels in such cases. And then the last concept which I kept it here is cloud security fundamentals. And like everybody in the session knows about it, the whole concept of cloud security when it comes to IT industry. Now, cloud is the keyword, right? That's how it is. Everybody says cloud, 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 and it's is the next thing, next big thing, and you have to catch on to it. All those things and all. Again, in my nutshell, I'm not gonna talk on the basics. Again, I'm not gonna talk the fundamentals of cloud security. Or I'm not gonna talk about fundamentals of cloud, all those things and all. And I'm sure being cloud into such prevalent, and three major players are already into that industry. Like for example, if you want to talk about it, AWS, Google, and Microsoft, these three big players are already there. I'm sure out of these 10%, at least not even 10%, maybe let's say, let's keep it as low as 1% should be, I'm sure 1% of the audience would have been certified or knowledge on cloud security or cloud basics in such cases. Assuming in that factor, so that's very interesting concept. If you love technology, and cloud security or cloud is one of the interesting technology you have to go through. And again, I'll talk about it in the coming up slides. We will see what is what and all those things, and based on that we will further proceed how you process it in such cases. And moving on.
Sir?
Hope everybody can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I extremely sorry for the screen, because the thing is, like, getting a good screen recording software is not an easy stuff, and even if you get it, it has plethora of bugs, and on top of an adwares and other things comes into picture. Because of that reason, I couldn't get into full screen mode. So I'm just going to go with the slide. Hope you guys can see my screen. and I'm going to proceed with that if you guys are fine with it.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so starting off with the cybersecurity in a whole. Yeah, in a definition, there is different kinds of perspective which we can take it. But the simplest definition which we can understand is anytime when you talk about cyberspace, it's all about internet. So any security aspect related to internet can be considered directly towards the cybersecurity or cybersecurity in such cases. And again, it is as the whole internet is not the place where it is restricted only to a desktop or a laptop. It's much more than that. So it's a service oriented, it's a mobile device, it's an electronic system and network and other things combined together. It is basically a cybersecurity. Because of that reason, the structure or the backbone what the cybersecurity takes on is totally different than how it is. Just a minute. I'm sorry, I didn't share it in the other screen. My bad. Just a second. Hope it's visible in both the screens.
Yes, sir. Now,
And both the players or maybe both the meetings can hear me also. I think it should be good. Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. So when you talk about cybersecurity, as I said, that is how it expands to in a different perspective. So in a nutshell, what exactly, how is it works and how do you take care of it? And when you talk about cybersecurity, how do you bundle it in such cases? Simple point is, first thing is first, when you talk about any cybersecurity, being aware and what are the things you're going to protect is one of the things which comes into picture. So the first thing in first is end user education. That is, regardless of whichever the technology you talk about it, end user education is one of the core concept or core what do you say, content you deliver, and you making sure what you know and what you're doing is very important. So installing unwanted apps, or let's say thin clients or thick client, whichever you are installing in your laptops or desktop, doesn't matter if you get an email, you don't even expect that email, but you just click on it, and those kind of things, which is part of the end user education. And coming up to the network security is the overall package what you look at. So when you talk about network security, as I said, I'm not going to go towards the enterprise level. Let's think about in the end user level, like in a day-to-day personal level. So you have a Wi-Fi router. I'm sure everybody uses Wi-Fi router in your home, and or you tethered using your mobile phone. So what kind of a password you have set it up, and what kind of what he said, WPA2 or WPA1, what kind of Wi-Fi technology are you using it, and what are you using the default setting of your application or the device, or have you changed the default password? And all those credentials comes into picture when it comes to network security. And application security, again, as I was talking about, what type of application you use. And just I was talking about it, getting what do you say, a good screen recorder software is very difficult. Again, if you just search the screen recorder in your browser, there's many lines of softwares with different vendors comes into picture. uh, even if you pay, what happens here is, in the background there are plenty of adwares and malware associated softwares which you get it. And good software doesn't come in a very cheap manner. So because of that reason, people tend to take different choices in such cases. So let's talk about even the Microsoft in such cases. If you want to buy a Microsoft Office, a basic Office package will cost you not less than 4,000. And I'm sure you can get the same in internet for 1,000 also. There are vendors who do sell it. But the problem here is that's again an issue which causes, if you buy that, you are becoming a part of a bot network, which is you don't even know about it. So buying it from a genuine source is very important, and also what type of software you install in your machine is also one of the important concepts. And if you go move to the information security, and there it comes into a personal space security. So what type of your password you have set it up in your network or in your own laptop in such cases. Is it easily openable? Is it how does it works when it comes to the previous software, previous what do you say, password in such cases. The best example I could give you is Google comes up with the different sources, and if you're using Google's password saving mechanism, it has its own data points. I think I recently found out one of the password which I usually use it is been compromised, and it is available in the public network. Then I had to take a quick action on it. So what do you mean by public network is nothing but dark network. So one is Google, another one is I personally go and check, is there possibility that your information is lurking in the dark web, as if we call it as. Those are all the aspect which we take. So when it comes to information security aspects, so it's your own personal security, how you keep your laptop or desktop operating system, and also your mobile phone. Do you install unwanted softwares? What type of softwares? What kind of a permission you give? That comes aspects into that particular area. Operational security, again, it is in between you and your organization which you are serving. Like, for example, if you're working for Manoormaniam University, then it is your duty making sure your machine is free of malwares. And if it is malware infected, it is your duty making sure that you don't connect to the network which has been used by many other people, because you're going to infect that. It's almost it almost follows the same structure as the coronavirus in such cases. If you're infected, stay home. So don't get into connected to any other network. That's one of the example I could give you. And disaster recovery and business continuity is one of the biggest topic. Again, this is if you see the whole concept from the left to right, disaster recovery and business continuity is mostly towards a different level of argument. Why does it comes it? Because if you think rest of the things, network security, application security, information security, these are all technical aspects. But disaster recovery and business continuity is different overall when it comes to compliance perspective. But why do you need that is one of the important things. So a best example I will give you is most of the universities. I think I don't know how many of you heard about there is a virus or a malware called as ransomware. They are one of the interesting malwares which you can find it. The reason why I say interesting is because when you use any other ideas or any other concept, this works with differently in such cases. The best example I usually give is if you go to 90s or 80s in such cases, the movie industry of 90s and 80s are simply as basic as possible. You have a lead role, and you have a heroine, and you have a villain. This is how it works. If villain needs money, by default, what he does is he makes sure he kidnaps what do you say, heroine, or he kidnaps what do you say, heroine's mother or hero's mother, whichever it is, to get some ransom. That's what they do. Okay, so even ransomware does the same aspect. But now what happens here is, if the same ransomware hit your university, then what is the disaster recovery mechanism? You have it. So if you're saving your question papers or maybe critical informations in one particular place, and hit by a ransomware, goes everything. So, and also when somebody hits with a ransomware, it doesn't mean that you're going to get recovered even after you're paying it. So that becomes a problem. So one of the best basic knowledge you should have it at the end is disaster recovery, and also how do you continue your business. So in a simple nutshell, if you have a question paper in your what do you say, a laptop, it is always used to it is good to maintain in a centralized environment, or maybe object-based storage system, which you can use it instead of the basic disk drive, so which will help you in the future development, or you're making sure the business continuity is maintained and also disaster is contained in such cases. Those are the one of the aspects which you will look at it. Moving on to the next slide, information security basic principle. As I was talking in the beginning, one of the core principles of information security is the CIA triad, we call it as. CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you simply wanted to explain, confidentiality is nothing but authorized person should only have access to a specific environment. So, for example, VC VC is authorized to get into his office, and he can use his office. Likewise, if some other persons, like let's say a HOD comes in, or let's say faculty comes in, they have a restricted access. They have access, but they have restricted access. Those kind of concepts are talked in the confidentiality. When you talk about integrity, so integrity is all about what data from one place to other place is transmitted, and the data transmitted from one place to other places does not changes or does not tampered with in such cases. In this is the area where we mostly talk about the cryptography. Again, being cryptography is a very big, huge subject to talk about it. I'm not going to go in deep of it. So integrity is mostly maintained different ways. One of the ways is cryptography in such cases. Many core is maintained with the cryptography. And the last one is availability. Availability being the rightful person should be having access to all-time access to the required information or required service in such cases. In a nutshell, if you talk about it, so availability is all about, like as I said, if a VC has access to his office room, just because of I have to put security in such cases, I wanted to make sure that the whole college is secure. I want the confidentiality, integrity to be equally maintained. So what I do is I try to make sure super confidential. So in the sense, if VC has to get into his office, it has to be he has to cross through 3 levels of securities. One is we talk about in the Mission Impossible movies, like you have a retina scan, thumbprint scan, and also facial recognition and body impression. All those things comes into picture just because to maintain a security. It doesn't work out there because that's an education industry. That should not be. So there is always an equality which you have to maintain. So the confidentiality, availability should be equally thought through. So if you go towards confidentiality, it means you're going away from availability. So you should maintain a ratio between the confidentiality and availability in such cases, so to achieve a good product or a good service in the security industry. That is one of the important things. So like, for example, access card is good. If you go beyond access card, what else you can do it? So you put a fingerprint scanner. So now you have an access card and you're spending some time on the fingerprint scanner, and also you're spending some time on the facial recognition. All those things are all time-consuming process. You have to choose what is best for you in such cases. Those are the things very interestingly have to work upon. Next is when you talk about the threat, vulnerability, and the risk. So in the first slide, I was talking about the quantifying the data. So risk is one of the unlikely events which might happen. It's not guaranteed that it will happen. So in such cases, but again, it is an anticipation what you will think that it might happen in such cases. So for example, wearing mask is protection. Again, it doesn't mean that 100% guaranteed that you're gonna get protected with COVID in such cases. If not, if you are wearing a helmet, and then that doesn't mean that if you're going through what do you say, a bike with a helmet, it doesn't mean that you're not going to end up with the what do you say, accident, right? So those are the one of the things which you have to work through. So that is one of the important concept in risk. And examples I've taken is a data breach is a risk example. If you go beyond that, if you want to quantify it, there are two aspects. One is threat, another one is vulnerability. A threat is usually an external entity acting on internal or external facing assets or a device. A vulnerability is weakness inside the device itself in such cases, in a vice versa environment. If you talk about threat is again a probability, it might happen. So usually we go from the bottom to top. So let's talk about the vulnerability. So first thing is first, you have a computer and you are running with not running with the latest OS or not updated your operating system to the latest OS, which means you're missing out the patches. So OS update is
is very crucial, and likewise it applicable for your mobile phone also. When you don't update it, you have to make sure that what are the associated gaps you're creating it. In that gap, you might have a 0 day. A 0 day is a vulnerability where everybody knows about that problem, but nobody has given the solution. That's basically an example of 0 day. If a 0 day occurs, it is very difficult for you to solve the problem. So that is one of the crucial aspects when it comes to vulnerability impact. So making sure you are up to date is one. If you are not up to date, if you're not, updated your vulnerability, or you're not updated your operating system, what happens then is you are exposed to let's say 10 or 5 vulnerabilities, and that's when the threat acts on it. Okay, most of the people think that my antivirus does not give alert. That means that I'm secure. That is not the meaning. So the antivirus only gives you if signature matches. If signature does not matches, it doesn't. So I can create a virus which does not matches the signature, and I can put it on a machine, and I can get the data as much as possible. The only way to exploit this is using the vulnerability which is already exists. People from external world try to exploit your machine and try to extract the information which is required. And that is basically a simple example is data breach in such cases. That's when threat and vulnerability multiplies into a risk. Again, this is a simplest formula to understand. If you go into the actual content creation, or let's say CompTIA is one of the organizations which has a different formulas. Even SANS has it, and risk calculation is one of the very interesting concept. If you go through their contents, and it will be very interesting for you to go through. And that's one of the recommendations which I would recommend you guys to go through, that SANS or maybe NIST for risk calculations in such cases. Moving on to the next one is common types of threats is, let's talk about the malware. Again, I talked about malware is as a simple software or a program which is not intended to perform certain activity, but it does. It just goes beyond it. Let's say your start button does something like your start icon should appear. If I make your start button to shut down your machine, that's how a simple malware occurs. So that's an example of malware. And the most prevalent one is ransomware, and the ransomware is the simplest example that how a simple concept we usually talk about. Let's take an assert. Assert in the sense it can be anything. An assert, if it attains a value, that's when it gets exploited when it needed. So the value is nothing but a money, or it can have a certain level value which you may not think about it. So when an assert attains a value, and that's when the whole point of threat occurs. And when a threat occurs, you have to make sure that asset does not have a much of a value, vulnerability in such cases. So a simple example I gave you is ransomware, which is everywhere nowadays. So can you protect yourself from ransomware? In a nutshell, 50-50, but I can't give you 100% guarantee that you're going to protect yourself from malware. The reason being is every day there are one or other vulnerability which comes up. Somebody will create a malware and then try to put it in your machine, and they can try to encrypt it. So that's how it works. So in a nutshell, it's a different story how you protect yourself. So don't try to keep key information where you are. That is very important in such cases. And don't try to keep your information which is not relevant where it is in a place where it should not be in such cases. In a nutshell, like for example, saving your password in Google Chrome is also one of the biggest problem which you go through. That doesn't mean that you buy a new software and then use that. That's going to create another problem. If that company gets breached, that's another problem. Then going old school is a good idea. Let's say, let's write it in the paper and keep it. And that's more problematic. The reason being, it's open and anybody can access to it if they get into your home. So what is right? What is right is making sure you use a strong password, which is, and also making sure you use all the password differently in such cases. Why am I emphasizing more toward password is because that's the simplest entry point which you get into. That's why. Let's move on to the phishing. Phishing is one of the easiest attack threat, or maybe can occur in such cases. And phishing is oldest method of threat which is still there. And I think starting from, if you, the name itself says it's a concept of fishing. You lure a steel hook and with the worm, and then the fish catches up. The same thing works now also. Best example would be, I think, in the 90s when the internet was booming, there was a virus which came into picture. The name of the virus is called as "I love you." The reason why it is called as "I love you" is because the subject line says "I love you," and the subject line with the attachment has a name called as love letter. The moment you open the love letter, and you get infected with malware. Simple. It still works. I'll give you an example. Recently, there was a trend going on. The trend is the subject comes with offer letter, and that contains an offer letter inside as an attachment. When you open the offer letter, that offer letter get infected. It has a VB script running on it. Directly it comes into picture. I don't know how many of you people recently watched it. Recently, the Microsoft got updated where you have to, whenever you open a Microsoft Word or Excel, you have to enable for editing. Why do you think that came into picture? Because the recent COVID situation increased a prevalent amount of vulnerability, which is where Microsoft is being used as a media to exploit the people, and that is was causing a big time issue. And that's when Microsoft act on this, and this is one of the example where they put up an enable. Until unless you enable it, their background VBs will not run. Visual Basic script will not run on your machine, so that they get infected. So that's one of the reasons. And DOS and DDoS is one of the again prevalent one. The reason why DOS stands for denial of service attack, and DDoS stands for distributed denial of service attack. The simple example I can give you is you have a website running on your college. Your website has a capability. Let's say in a minute, or let's say in a second, it can serve 10,000 requests. If I send 10,000 requests to your website, and the 10,001 request which is coming in will be shown a site not reachable page. Why? Because the server is busy attending the 10,000 requests, which is completely filled, and it has not completed the rest of the ones. Because of that reason, yes, ma'am. Did anybody ask any questions? Okay, cool. Sorry, I heard something. That's the reason. Yeah, when you talk about DDoS, that's still there. And the reason the example I could give you is if you go to IRCTC website and you have a login page, and you have a login page with a big advertisement with some of the characters you entered into that. The reason why CAPTCHA came into picture is this attack. Okay, thanks to this attack, you have to wait maybe, let's say, a couple of seconds more to log into your own services itself. That is the reason why they're trying to, because it hit by, I think our IRCTC website was hit by many a times. I think you can browse through. I'm not going to talk about it. It's a funny story altogether. If you browse about the IRCTC hit by DDoS, and you will get a good information. The best example I could give you is GitHub. I think everybody uses GitHub. I think recently, last year before, I think so, it got hit by DDoS attack, and the largest ever DDoS hit in the history. The server got hit by 1.3 TB per second. In the second, in a sense, the server got hit with the 1.3 TB of data or request to the server in a second. And that is the largest ever. The surprising part is they were able to make sure they scale it and then cope up with it. And it is not very easy. If you talk about DOS, one person sending a request is easy. But when it comes to DDoS, it is very difficult, because the number of people sending a request to a server, it becomes very huge. Mostly that is done through botnets. And because of that reason, it is not an easy stuff to go with it. And next one is man in the middle attack. And this is one of the simplest example which still goes in. I think this I usually used to see it in government websites. And now And now I think recently it's gone. If you 2 3 maybe let's say 5 6 years ago, if you go into any government websites and see that, you in the left side top corner you will see what do you say, a certificate not valid in page there. The reason why that appears is because the certificate of that particular website, either it is expired or not implemented correctly. Because of that reason, whatever you're browsing through or sending information through that particular media is being exposed. So if I'm in between, I can tap into the network and listen. Same thing happens if you're using a Wi-Fi. If you are using a WPA network in your home, Google, you can get it. WPA is the weakest, what do you say, Wi-Fi authentication mechanism which you can use it. That's very easy, and also I can tap into whatever you're doing it. So that is becomes very easy if you're going with the WPA in such cases. So man in the middle attack, again, these are all common, which is still available in such cases. And when you talk about, again, from there to here, I'm just moving towards the little bit compliance part of it. Let's say, what do you mean by a risk? We talked about risk and we talked about a threat, and in a vulnerability is one of the aspects which is on you. And when you talk about the risk, how does it work? So first thing is first, what is risk to you? Establishing a context is all about that. What do you mean by risk to you? So for example, when I say risk to me is something different for you. So in a nutshell, I drive bike, you drive a car. So the risk for me is a helmet, for you it is seatbelt. So the context varies. Because of that reason, you have to establish a context. That's what is all about risk. And risk identification is a bit more different. So what is risk identification? So you, once you set up a context, you need to identify the associated risk. You will have a list of risk in your own organization. Now, let's say, for example, creating a question paper, and question paper having a mistake is also a risk. How do you avoid it? You go through different committees and different people setups and try to evaluate the question paper and try to come up with a good answer. That's one of the reasons. And how do you, once you identify the risk, how do you analyze it? The analysis is you have a specific mechanism. So how do I check the question paper mistakes? So this checking mechanism is analysis, and also once you complete that, well, how do you evaluate and come back to a solution? So like, for example, let's say it missed out, one question paper missed out with a mistake, and then how do you evaluate at the end and then come and stand where this is a problem which we need to come up with a new solution, control needs to be put it up, and that's when evaluation part comes into picture. And the last one is risk treatment. Again, when it comes to eradicating risk or controlling risk is not an easy task. There are let's say 4 different methods of risk control we talk about it. First is treatment. The first and foremost, anytime when we find a problem, we wanted to avoid the problem. So avoid the problem is, as I was talking about it, so I don't want to get into what do you say, bike accident at all. So what is the best solution? Let's buy a car. That's the best solution. That's how we terminate the risk of bike accident. But I don't have a car. Okay, so but I don't have a car. In such cases, it's not affordable for me to buy a car. So what I do is I try to treat it in a different way. So let's say I put a helmet. Okay, that's a simple treatment mechanism which we try, and I put a knee pad and all those things so that I can secure. That's a treatment mechanism. That doesn't mean, again, you're not going to get into accident. Then you have a last option. What if I do get into accident? So then the last option is you transfer a risk to somebody else. How do you transfer your risk to somebody else is, I know that I'm going to get into accident, so better I do an insurance. So so life coverage and also bike coverage, all those things, insurance, you do it, that's a risk transfer. You're transferring your risk of finance to somebody else to solve the problem. So that's a risk transfer. The last one is risk tolerance. Apart from all those things, it doesn't mean that you're not going to end up, even after tolerating, let's say treating, terminating, treating and transferring, you still have the risk that is you're going to end up in the, end up with the accident, and it's possible that you're going to die. So what are you going to do about it? You can't do nothing about it. So that's how it is. You tolerate it, and I'm fine with it. So I'm gonna live with that risk. I might die tomorrow also, doesn't know, because that's how it. Now if you talk about COVID also, it's same thing. People, I think 3 months after COVID-19 came into picture, different people came up with the different insurance strategy: 6 month, 3 month package, 6 month package, 1 month package. I was like, how do you know that I'm going to die in 1 month or 6 months? So that's a simple solution question which I came into picture. So these people coming up and giving you, sir, we will give you 6 month coverage, 3 month coverage, 1 month coverage. How do you know that I'm going to die in 1 month or 6 months? I myself does know how I'm going to die, but how do you calculate that I'm going to die in 1 month? So that is one of the interesting stuff people come up with when it comes to risk. Best example for risk is on, again, insurance. Yeah, so rest of the thing is communication consulting, and continuous monitoring is one of the things which always a risk is associated to. Yeah, moving on to the next simple concept is information classification. I know I'm just running through, just have a little bit of 10 minutes. I have to cover some couple of slides. So I'll surely pause in the end, and I'll give you some explanation if somebody has questions on that. So going towards information classification, so first thing is first, if you want to talk about data privacy, first and foremost, you need to know what is your data, how is your data is classified. So that's when we come up with the data classification. So public, internal, restricted, confidential. Your notice board, you're giving notice to your students is public. That is by default a public notice, which is can be accessible anybody. Internal, a circular related to your college affairs is internal. Restricted, it is by default only HODs and VCs can access to restricted. Confidential, let's say talk about financial information, college decisions or university decisions, all those things are all confidential data in such case. So let's say your college is giving a tender to somebody else, that is again confidential data. So those are the things which comes into picture. The moment you classify that data, we move into next subject called as data in such case, data transmission or data security part itself. I didn't cover that into security or transmission because I'll tell you why is it. First of all, anytime when you create a context about the data, how do you safeguard is one of the important point. So anytime data are three different ways you can protect it. The three different ways you can identify and protect it. So one is data at rest. So when a data is in the at rest position, you can protect it. The simplest example is something which is in your pen drive, something which is in your hard drive. So that is data at rest. Data in transit, something which is moving through the air. Let's say you're sending an email from one person to other person. You're sending a file from one network resource to another network resource. All those things are considered as a data in transit. Data in use is data which is being currently used. So for example, the PPT which I'm showing you is currently being running from the RAM because all the content are pulled from the hard drive, pushed into the RAM, fetched into the RAM. And from there, the RAM is what I'm looking at it. So because of that reason, this is a live data which I use it. I'm seeing it. So how do I apply protection to this is one of the concept of data privacy. And again, I did not go. This is a very big topic to again talk about it. Data privacy itself. The moment you establish the context of data and the moment you know what are the different ways your data is going to get leaked or go away, and that's when you have a data privacy point into picture. And the different softwares like a DLP is one of the software data, loss prevention software is one of the softwares which we try to maintain data privacy in a different ways. It's more than what you see. There are different tools. And if you buy a DLP software, you have to set up a context, first of all, which is important when it comes to any environment. So if you come to a bank or something like that, the organization, if you go to a financial institute, the first important information or the aspect is you should know what is public data, what is restricted data. And then based on that, we will try to protect it. So like, for example, data in rest is something which is there in the hard drive. I try to encrypt that. The data in transit is something which is going out. How do I encrypt it? So something like email, how do I protect that? That is also one of the aspect. Data in use is basically which is running in your RAM. So it is basically, is there any malware which is trying to look upon it? So on all those aspects we look at it. So this is again in a nutshell data privacy. If you understand this basics, rest of the things becomes easier for you to understand when it comes to data privacy and DLPs in such cases. Network security, very vast and huge subject if you want to talk about it. I like the statement which is given. Again, thanks to internet, you get super cool statements like this. So if you talk about network security, consists of policies, procedures, practices adopted to prevent data monitoring, unauthorized accessing, all those things. We see that it's again, it's how do I see as a network is a flow of electricity or flow of water in a river. You can't really contain it, and if you want to contain it, it's going to be huge data blockage which is going to occur. So what you do is you divert and write a different rules. Like for example, you divert some of the water to this place, some of the water to that place, and how do you identify, purify, and use that data in a different way? That's what is all about network security. And when you talk about network security, the moment you talk about network security, it's all about servers. Everybody knows that it's a switch, it's a firewall, it's a UTM, and everything comes into picture. But under the nutshell, what exactly, how are you going to protect it? You need to know what is the packet which is going through. So when you know the attack, that's when you know how you're going to protect it. So when you talk about passive and active, is the two different methods which you identify attack in such cases. Passive method is you don't interact with the actual traffic. Active methods is you are interacting with the actual traffic. So passive method, like for example, wiretapping is one of the interesting thing which we tend to do. So what we used to do is like, I don't know how many of you are aware of things. You have just this old technique which you used to do. I think, well, I remember still, if you have a cable connection, now you don't have a cable connection. I think you have dish TV connections. You get it. During the old times, people used to do this. My neighbors is one of the example for that. They take a copper wire. Okay, you put it in between a copper wire and a cable connection. Put a magnet there, wrap it around, connect that copper wire into your TV, and you get a channel. What is exactly happening is you literally wiretapped the cable connection. The same thing can be done to your network also. If you're running through a cable, I can just put a one tapper there, and that can capture each and every packet which is transmitting, and then I can use that for myself. But I haven't revealed myself, who am I? That's how it is. If you go in the active manner, but I have to send a virus or something to your network, and then based on that I have to, it's basically active method is I reveal myself in one or the other way and try to protect in a different set. So that is one of the virus part. DOS and DDoS, it's again similar to what is an active method in such cases. Moving on, examples of different mechanism to protect myself or the network. We do use firewall. Everybody use firewall. I don't know. I'm sure everybody knows what is firewall. And your computer has a firewall. Microsoft has its own firewall. And see a small go through that. That is one of the things. And there are different types of firewalls over there. I'm not going to talk about this is what is, that is what it. There are packet filtering firewall, UTM based firewalls. That's a big topic to talk about. One of the mechanism which we use to network protection is the basic step is the firewall. Network segmentation, this is one of the important concepts. What you do is your student network is not connected to your faculty network. Your faculty network is not connected to your dean network. This is very important to maintain it, because based on the privilege level, rather than privilege level, I would say sensitivity, the data sensitivity level, the different security aspects of the segmentation is done. So VC has more, what do you say, priority towards his data. So his network would be separate. Faculties and HODs will have a bit different priority. Because of that reason, their network would be separate. Likewise with the student network. This is one of the important concepts when it comes to network segmentation or network security in such cases. That is one of the important. Again, I don't know how many of you follow this. If you buy a new routers, this is one of the important stuff. Somebody comes into your home, you literally give them a password, you connect it. Okay, you have an option of doing different things. Like for example, whitelisting, blacklisting the devices, and creating a separate segment itself for them to do it. So those are all aspects which you can develop to protect your own information internal network. Access control is one of the one of the content where you have you write a different rule based on your own requirements. So let's say, for example, I give you a firewall. What you do is, it's not just like that it comes up. Now the recent trend is you have something called as UTM, Unified Threat Management System, where you don't have to write anything, everything comes with it. So that's a different story. But still, your Microsoft firewall need to write it. You need to write the access control list. So you have to write the codes or write the content. Like for example, if somebody pings me with the port 80, block them. That kind of a rule is called as access control list in such cases. And remote access VPN. Today, nowadays, if you talk about internet, everybody is working from home, and VPN connection segmentation, and also securing your VPN access is one of the important points in such cases. Certification-based MFA, that is multi-factor authentication. These are the different ways which we tend to do that. And very interesting, one of the important concepts is zero trust network access. What do you mean by that? Is I don't trust anyone. I'll make sure that I'm separate, I'm alone, I'm not connecting to internet, all those things. Those kind of things are called as zero trust network. We don't trust anybody. We just make sure that even internal network, internal employee, we don't trust it. That's what is all about zero trust in such cases. Again, that's a bit more broader concept if you talk about it. Best examples are there. Like for example, if you get a time, I think you can talk about what do you say, Iranian nuclear power project, or there is something called as what do you say, there is a particular virus which got infected, which gives you good idea towards zero trusted network access. I think 0 Day is one of the documentary which you can go through, and that documentary gives you a good information about zero trust network. Even zero trust network can be breached. That's one of the example which they have talked in that particular documentary. Email security, we have a big time email security now available. So what do you mean by email security is who can send a mail. Like for example, when a huge amount of phishing email comes in, what you do, what you take, how do you take care of it, all those aspects comes into picture in that area. Data loss prevention, which we talked in the previous data privacy area. So this is a different softwares which we develop. There are many vendors. Again, those is one of the point which comes into picture, because you integrate. When I talked about data in transit, right? That's when your network segment of your DLP comes into picture. And the next one is IDS IPS. IPS stands for intrusion prevention system, intrusion detection system. So hackers tend different types of things. IPS and IDS is one of the devices which can detect the lateral movement. So that is one of the important point which you have to go through when it comes to network. And moving on, as I don't have much time, so I'm just trying to quickly cover the aspects of cloud security. Again, I am not going to talk about what is SaaS, PaaS, and all those things, infrastructure as a security, or all this cloud infrastructure point of view, virtualization, hypervisor. I'm not going to talk about it. I believe that you guys can get that information. If you go to AWS website, they give you beautiful content which you can read through. That's very interesting to about. I'm just going to cover the basics of what is it, and then some of the security aspects when it comes to cloud security. So again, cloud is everything nowadays. If you talk about any company which does not use it, I'm sure they are in a Stone Age situation. Again, still there are situations where people tend to use it because their application is not compatible with it. That situation, where still people use it. I have seen that in such cases. So it is different story altogether. So if you compare to the traditional and this one, the scalability is very important when it comes to cloud security. I did talk about in the previous slide when we talk about DDoS. GitHub got hit with the huge amount of DDoS attack. Scalability was one of the important aspect which was able to keep the GitHub online, because cloud gives you a certain capability where you can expand your server's capability just like that in a single click of a button. That is one of the important point when it comes to scalability. So for example, if you want to add one more server to your web application, in traditional, you have to go and buy and get it. So because of that reason, it's time consuming, resource, money, finance, everything comes into picture. But this cloud is the new age virtualization technology. Because of that reason, it's very easy for you to scalable point of view. Efficient resource utilization in the sense, uh, if you see, mostly 30 to 50%, let's say in a nutshell, let's go to the max 60% of your machine's capability you are using it, not beyond that. So cloud makes sure that it is using 100%, and flat out it's going to run on the top performance area. Because of that reason, it is trying to extract information as much as possible. And usage-based cost is one of the important things. So where the traditional, you're going to pay much as my, whenever you want a new instance, we're going to buy it. It's how it is. In here, you pay and use it. Because of that reason, it is very easy. Third-party data centers, you want to go with that. This is again one of the important topic, third-party data centers. If you talk about it, for us like banks and all, we are not very friendly with these kind of cloud things. The reason here is, I'll talk in the next slide why it is not very user friendly, because you have to go through many other aspects of cloud when you put up some instance in the cloud in such cases. So third-party data center, in-house data center is still preferred in some financial institutions. That I will talk in the next slide. Why is it? Reduce time to market and reduce time longer term to market. That is, again, this is with respect to marketing point of view, but that does helps you if you are in the industry of marketing's cloud point of view. Low upfront cost and high upfront cost. You don't have to worry about it, because as it is utilizing the resource efficiently, because of in the place of 2 servers, you can put 1 server and then utilize and run 3 or 4 virtualization, a virtual instance that will give you better stability in your organization. This is the one which I was talking about. When you talk about cloud security, increased attack vector, which I was talking about. Yes, this is why is it very important I'm talking about, as you really don't know exactly where you are when it comes to cloud. Let's talk about it. If you I've seen into situations, I've gone through different organizations which I support, increasing attack vector in the sense you have around 6,000 to 5,000, or let's say the least one I've seen is 500 machines in a single cloud instance account. That's not an easy stuff. Maintaining it, which account goes down, is very interesting stuff. The example I'll give you, there was one client which I was supporting where his public key, so the private key was exposed in GitHub. Somebody took hold of that particular private key, logged into the machine. He literally spun up 500 machines in 1 hour. So that means, just imagine, he created a virtual machine, 500 virtual machine in 1 hour, and that cost and everything has to go through. On top of it, the breach has to be contained. And that is a very interesting point, and you don't know where it gone. People maintain at least 10 to 20 accounts for a single organization. Because of that reason, where it is going wrong is very difficult. I understand there are different vendors coming up with the different stories. If you talk about it, AWS has its own, security system called as Guard Duty, CloudTrail, those kind of securities, which does offer many points. But still, at the end of the day, it's your machine. You are the one who's going to take care of it. They're not going to give you complete security. It's their responsibility to give you infrastructure. It's your responsibility to maintain the security, upholding their, agreements in such cases. Lack of visibility and tracking is one of the things. Again, that is second point. So you don't have much visibility, even if you have a diagram, let's you say flow diagram, still you don't know where is what. And because of that reason, for example, in olden days, if you go and find out where is what, you have a breach, you just go and plug it. Now, what are you going to do? Which is the machine which got breached, and which are the one connected, and what are the policies associated, how they interact with each other, and understanding that is very difficult. And that's what is lack of visibility is all about. Ever-changing workload, and that is one of the least bothering point of view when it comes to cloud security. What is that is the workload on the servers, on the machines, are quite high upon. Doesn't matter, it's not going to go down, but the logic here is the vector will keep there as a change. In the sense, if a virtual machine is running and there is another virtual machine is running, you have a one instance communicating to another instance with a specific private key. But regardless of what, if one instance goes down, the second instance has to know what is going on. That automation is very difficult, and that is what is ever-changing workload keeps uploading it. DevOps, DevSecOps, and automation. Yeah, there is a big time tool. There are different tools which is associated. There are different stuffs which is associated, but still automating those into a fully automated environment is still a challenge. We do work, but there is always a challenge which comes into picture when it comes to, again, that's a big time topic which talk about it. Granular privilege and key management is one of the important concepts. So when I onboard a particular user, what access I have to give is one of the key point of view. What he should have access to, what he should not have access to. I've got into a situations where I gave an access to one particular resource. He literally deleted one particular key, and that, in the sense, that particular instance, that instance is what serving 20,000 people. And because of that reason, 20,000 people did not get service for 2 hours. And we have to respin up, back up the old server back and come up. So that is very interesting, not only on the mistake point of view, and many other, like where you have a breach of keys also happens, a loss of key. Because of that reason, you get into a breach situation. Complex environment is one of the important points. So in physical, you know where is what. Diagrams does help, but what happens at the end of the day is there are situation gaps which gets created if an employee leaves the organization. And that's why I put that there in such cases. The last one is cloud compliance and governance. So what is the cloud compliance governance challenges here is, when I was talking in the previous slide, right? When you come to a bank, it's not easy to comply with the government. So for example, being a bank in a certain level, you have to comply with RBI, you have to comply with PCI-DSS, that is Payment Card Industry Standard. You have to comply with some other organization level, like for example, CERT, which is coming up in here. And if it is in US, you have to comply with HIPAA, SOC, many other compliance level. And on top of it, if you go to another one, GDPR, which is the most highest fine compliance policies, which is very difficult to manage it. And that is also one of the challenge, which is how do you orient your cloud environment towards your compliance requirement is very challenging part. So in the beginning, I was talking about in the what do you say, in the CIA triad, I was talking about confidentiality, integrity, availability. So you have to make sure you comply with the government, and also you have to make sure you provide appropriate service which is available all time to the client. And doing that is very difficult when it comes to cloud security point of view. I'm not saying it is in the sense it's not achievable, but it is difficult. That's the word which I could put it up. But I'm sure the whole environment, as and when the people coming up with the new technologies, if you just log into AWS today, the number of services which is offering for you is more than what do you say, you can gobble it. And that's how it is big as environmentally you can take it up. So again, in a nutshell, that's one of the challenge which you have to go through. I think that's what I had. And I think for the resources, I think you can scan. I think ma'am would be sending you the resources. This is my email ID. You can reach out to me, and you can scan or maybe take a screenshot of this particular QR, and that will take you directly to the drive, which will give you the content from where you can download it. And references, again, there are plenty of references. The internet is filled with references. Being in a certain level of organization, it is good to refer a particular book. I usually, again, this is not the only one, but there are many other. But what I found is cheapest and easiest way for us to get it is getting this book. Is referring this book is one of the easiest ways. Cybersecurity by Nina Godbole and Sunita Balpur is one of the fine books which you can. They cover very good content when it comes to what level of cybersecurity you can go through. Most importantly, cyber with respect to cryptography part of it is very interesting to go with. It also does gives you a good amount of research opportunities in such cases. The last part which I wanted to talk about is certifications. I think there are some some sessions which is coming up with you guys on the opportunities point of view. But regardless of what, when it comes to certifications, what certification you have to do is your own choice in such cases. In a different nutshell, it's career oriented, or how do I put myself in future. So I wanted to develop myself into security. You have a money, there is a specific route line. You don't have money, there is a specific, your aspect of finance decides what you are doing. So for example, if you want to make sure that you are standing out in the global market, global certifications are required. So example would be EC Council is one of the organization which does provides you global certification, and also CompTIA, SANS. These are the different organization which supports the global certifications in such cases. If you are moving into compliances, ISACA is also one of the organization which you can refer, which does gives you a good amount of certification on the compliance point of view. Risk management, you will learn very good when it comes to compliance point of view, ISACA, and technical point of view, I would say you can go with what do you say, CompTIA, or maybe if you talk about EC Council. If not, I don't want to spend much of an amount, because this is going to empty your pocket much if you're going for a global certification. Not less than 30K would be one of the things. If you feel that you wanted to be in a lesser environment, so you can go with opportunities, less financial impacting opportunities like Udemy, Edureka. Though they do have nowadays they offer a wonderful courses, I would say. Though it is not, might not be developed, it may not be acceptable in the uh, enterprise level or maybe corporate world, but does give you a certain level of knowledge which you can gain in such cases. I think one of the things which I have seen in Edureka is, I think AWS security is one of the one which I have gone through, and they've made a very good, beautiful content for you guys. You can go through with that. Yep, that's what I had it for you guys, and I'm sorry I just ran over a bit more. Yeah, that's what I had. If anybody has any questions, you can. Anyone has any questions? Restricted. Okay, so I think there is one question which I'm seeing from one of the example is restricted and confidential. Okay, in a nutshell, they are vice versa in such cases. Confidential is basically restricted access is where you have a what do you call, an enforcement coming up when it comes to restriction. There is always an enforcement. Confidentiality is deliberately you maintain yourself. That is one of the important when it comes to confidentiality. So it's all about you enforce it or you do by yourself is the difference which comes into picture. A restriction can be enforced, confidential cannot be enforced. It has to come with it. But in a nutshell, they enforce it in a passive way. That happens in a different way. But they are in a nutshell same concept, does the same job. But in a way, if you talk about it, the restriction is an enforcement point of view. That's why we don't use the word restriction there. Further PhD for PhD. Okay. Yeah. So I think let's go concept of cloud. Concept of a cloud. If you talk about a cloud again, as I said, it is again, you said it. It's a concept. It's you have to utilize it. It can be changed accordingly. The whole concept of cloud is something you put up in the internet where it can be resource or anything which has a specific asset holding on it. In a nutshell, if I spin up a virtual machine, it might be a thick one or thin client, regardless of what, and that is simply as a cloud. And a cloud is in a nutshell, an internet can be called as a cloud. And the whole concept of cloud is anything you put it, save it there, and that is a cloud. And anytime you can access it. That's one, the whole concept, the privacy, the confidentiality and availability together with a certain level of integrity. You are able to access a resource, and that becomes a cloud concept in such cases. So a concept of cloud is as simple as possible, but regardless of what, if you wanted a bit more cloud conceptually, it's rather than understanding as a technology, please understand as a concept, and you will be very easy to go with it. And please refer AWS contents. I think they have a very good contents which you can go through, and this will really help you on excelling the some of the beautiful challenges which they are having, I guess. So yeah, talking about that, I think the next person has asked any specific topics for cybersecurity in which you can go further on it for PhD. Rather than cybersecurity, there are different areas where you can endorse on it. First thing is quantifying data is one of the important big data point of view, and integrating AI with cybersecurity is one of the projects which I usually work on, and big data analytics, security, combining is one of the topics which I've gone through. And even I'm also working on certain level where how does your IoT device integrate with your big data device, and how do you secure that in a specific manner? Those are all the concept. And combiningly, if you have cyber security and cyber forensic also can be combined. Those are all the aspect. I'm not why am I not giving you specific keen topic is, but I'm giving you keen ideas in such cases. So the reason why is because the if you go through specific concepts of cybersecurity, you will have a situation where you have to deep dive into dark web. If you deep dive into dark web, that's when you will get a specific idea towards a bit more PhD ideas in such cases. Yes, sir.
I'm Krishnamurthy from SRM University, Chennai Ramapuram campus.
Yes, sir.
I have a small doubt. My research area is cloud security.
Okay.
But as per the cloud companies, they are saying that a lot of security breaches are available, right, from third parties as well as service providers.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible for a research scholar to satisfy all the security breaches, or can I go for storing and retrieving sensory data, giving cryptographical security for that data? Which one is advisable?
Okay. Yeah. So you meant to say you wanted to know whether you can secure the client's data completely by your paper, correct?
Yeah, I want to make sure that supposing that my Aadhaar card is a sensitive data.
Okay.
So if you catch my data, you can, if you are a hacker, you can crack
Yes,
everything. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But when I am sending or retrieving any sensitive data into the cloud or from the cloud, how do I ensure that the data what I am storing or retrieving is having sufficient security? So this is my question. For accomplishing this security, what kind of methodology you would advise me to go for a research?
Okay. So again, first of all, is it possible? Let me divide your questions into different chunks. Is it possible to achieve security 100%? I've been told many a times, and I'm here also. I'm not. It's not bad to accept it. Achieving 100% security is always not possible, because there are one or the other ways it does comes into a picture where there is, as you said it, there are situations where third-party integrations, some other reasons which does comes into picture and gets into a breach of data. So that is always possible. Because of that reason, that's why it is very difficult to achieve 100% security. Second question is like, what are the other methods which I can secure? Like, for example, I can use cryptographical method of storing, sending, and retrieving data. I think as of now, even the cloud vendors does use the same one. So I think you're anytime whenever you're connecting to a AWS environment or any other services, by default it is encrypted with SSL2, SSL certificate and TLS integrated with it. Apart from that, when you store it, depending upon what type of storage you have it. Like for example, object based or storage, what do you say, storage if you're choosing it, so that is differently stored and encrypted. And the methods what you are having, you're providing is already available and people are using it as of now. My idea would be proposing a new cryptographical algorithms, which is a bit more hard on the decryption part, would be a ideal solution for me. And I think I would go with the second option of achieving through cryptography is the only option, I believe. Again, it will be a different, because you're going to propose a new method of encryption and decryption in such cases, and transmission media. Because of that reason, it would be a little more challenging, but it is achievable if you put your effort on that, I guess.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you. I got a lot of clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to narrow down my question into a single line. So I'm using elliptical curve cryptography for my research.
Okay.
So I'm going to strengthen the security by means of providing a fingerprint.
Okay.
Can I combine a fingerprint during encryption as well as decryption so that the data cannot be breached easily?
Yes, possible. But again, the fingerprint, in the sense you're gonna get a fingerprint from your device, right? Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is a separate device, which is like, for example, I have a laptop, which I have it in such cases. I'm not putting it in a bad vibe. I'm not saying that it is not possible. That's a good idea, great idea, I would say. And combining that is a good idea. But again, what I can do is, I'm sure your encryption methodology will work, but when the moment you use the second interface, like for example, the fingerprint, what happens here is, I can literally bypass your drive and I can interface with your own cryptographic methods, where I can change, or I can input my own fingerprint on the your transmission media. Because of that reason, without even getting into it, I can get authenticated. That is possible, but if you are able to find a way to hardcore the driver, because one of the problem with Microsoft is how it is interfaced with the kernel, and how it is interfaced with the how it is interfacing with your external APIs is the problem. And because of that reason, it is possible. But if you're able to work around that, I'm sure you can get that thing done.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Last but not the least, can I have
Yes,
your contact number, sir? Because your session is highly useful for my research. Lot of inputs I got. Can probably put it in the chat box.
I think I'm sorry. I don't know whether I don't remember the second number. I remember primary number, which I really use it for my office purpose. You can drop me an email. I will surely drop with you with my email. Sorry, my secondary mobile number. I'm sorry. Don't take it mistakenly, because I really don't want to use my primary numbers for other than my office purpose.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would like
Appreciate
to
it.
invite you for a session in our university, sir.
Anytime, sir. Anytime, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Sundareshwari from Karpagam Academy of Higher Education, Coimbatore.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have a doubt whether any simulation tool available for that, so that the students can be learn what is happening in the backside of the cyber security, like that.
Simulation tools, yes, ma'am. There are plenty of tools available in such cases. If you wanted to simulate the web application security in such cases, you can search something called as DVWA, down vulnerable web application. They call it as. This application is created open source. You can use it to test the web application, show how the cybersecurities are being enabled. And this has a very good, interesting stories too, in the sense it has a different IPS, it has its own content development. So you can refer this and combine with OS. Yeah, if you search the second one, this will give you the very interesting concept towards it. OS top 10 is the most top web application vulnerability which is available. So you can use that one to exploit it and how to show it. There is YouTube has a page, plethora of videos on the DVWA that also you can use it to simulate the cybersecurity in such cases. That is one of the way, and many others are there. Maybe I don't know off the mind. I can get you this one for the simulation point of view. You can drop me an email. I can get you some other simulation softwares which you can utilize it.
Okay, sir. Is this an open source, sir?
Yes, ma'am. That is open source.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Any other questions? Sorry, I didn't see the second screen at all. Okay.
So one last question.
Yes,
Actually, in
ma'am.
the top of the chat box, we have one question. Differentiate the threat concept with simple example. The question by Kartika Jaya, I think. That is
a threat is as simple as possible. Again, it is how do I say? In a sense, whenever you're going out of the home, you locked your home, but it is possible that somebody can open it. Okay, so that doesn't mean that a threat cannot occur in such cases. Again, threat is not aspected towards vulnerability, so it can be anything which is going on. And when you talk about threat is almost relatively equal to risk point of view in such cases. And that is why I give an example where if you take a threat is an external entity which acts on a particular asset or a device or object to take this off course in such cases. In a nutshell, a simple example, somebody going on a bike and all of a sudden you get an auto in between. An auto is a threat for you, so you're going to fall down. So as simple as possible. And again, I'm not taking in the concept of, again, don't think in the concept of security as a threat. A threat is a basic aspect which can happen in a day-to-day life. But if you think in the concept of security, that's when the whole concept of threat changes, takes on a different vector at all. So for example, you have an email ID, super cool. You got an email. I'm sorry. Okay.
sorry, sir.
No problem. So yeah, so if you got an email and you know that email is not intended, you are not expecting that email, but your mind does not stops you to stop clicking on it. Okay, that is a threat. Your own mind has a certain level of objectivity that you should not. And I think many of the people has the same problem. So threat can be any aspect. I'm not contexting that with the security at all. And again, threat is not a word which is associated only to the security. It is a in a nutshell, traditional word which can be utilized in everywhere. But when it comes to a security point of view, it takes a different dialogue and it takes a different direction itself. And that's why I would say. A simple example, as I said, you're walking down the stairs. If there is a oil spillage or a water spillage, you know that you're gonna fall down, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna fall down. So in a nutshell, it can be anything which is acting externally, internally, doesn't matter, which is affecting the normal perspective or normal function of a particular device or a particular movement or a particular work. It can be considered as a threat. Hope I made it easier, or maybe I didn't complicate it.
Sir, can I have one more question, sir? Krishnamurthy from SRM.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
So a lot of cryptographic algorithms have been proposed in the past, starting from RSA. But the hackers are finding very easier to break all these things.
Yes, sir.
My simple question is whether our data is secured in the cloud. Suppose I'm using my Google Drive.
Yes, sir.
How the service provider Google is giving security for my data, sir? Is there any security breach? It's
a hypothesis. In a nutshell, I would say it is hypothesis. I can't guarantee you. It's all about trust, sir. It's all about trust. I cannot give you guarantee that Google yet not got breached. There is a statement. If you talk about it, any organization which is complying with any particular regulations, like for example, if they are complying with US regulation, let's say within 1 hour, within a 4 hours of difference, they should, if they face a breach, they have to come up and show or publicly announce that they got breached. And if they don't do that, they get a hefty fine. Because of that reason, they come up and say that I got breached. Something like that does happen. The law makes sure that if they get breached, they have to inform. But that doesn't mean that they have to comply. If nobody knows it, you won't. Okay, so in a nutshell, if they wanted to keep it secret, it is secret. So in a nutshell, if security is it's a trust in a simple sense. If there are regulations and technical aspects which shows it is secure, but I cannot give you 100% guarantee that it is secure in such case. It's a trust which we believe on a particular service which is provided by a person.
Okay, sir. But 2 years back, Yahoo was actually.
That's the biggest example, I would say, sir.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
That's the biggest example, I would say. They violated almost all the norms of. Yeah, thank you. They violated most of the norms which is given by the organizations and many other things. There are many talks about the Yahoo itself. There is they had intention with the government and other things. Yeah, that is an exception. I'm sure that is the reason why GDPR came into picture, and that's why the whole concept of hefty fine came into picture. I'm sure that hefty fine is the one which is going to save us, and in a nutshell. But yes, Google is one of the best example. I would take it as. But again, I still believe that when you say something is secured or not, it is our trust on a particular service provided by a particular organization. That's how it works. So I do have a specific paid service taken from Google itself, still believing in a sense where, what do you say, it is required. The reason why I pay to a service is I wanted to make sure I want to ask question to them, because I'm a paid customer. I have a right to ask you a question if my service is not given to me. Something like that goes on. But again, I really can't give you guarantee that it is secure, but it's a trust which we endorse on a particular service.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think we are good, I guess, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So as there is no questions, this shows the clarity offered by the resource person. Sir, thank you, sir. Really, the session went very interestingly and excellent. And we have gathered more information from this. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Professor Krishnan. Thank you very much, sir. It was very informative. I was there throughout, and you really enthralled the audience. And I think they have many more questions, but unfortunately, we have to come back after that. Otherwise, we'll again meet in our level 2 meeting. And I mean,
surely, sir.
Yeah, we have
surely,
one more.
Thank you.
FDP, so we will again meet. Yes.
Surely, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. It's been an honor that I've been given a chance to present here. And thank you all being part of it.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now let's all take a break for lunch and join back the session around 2:30 p.m. Thank you all.